BBC World Theatre presents Peggy Ashcroft as Hedda Gabler in the play by Henrik Ibsen. The play is set in Norway, in George Tesman's house in Christiania, during 2 consecutive days in the autumn of 1890.
I'm afraid they're not back yet, Miss Tesman. The boat came in late last night, and the young mistress wouldn't go to bed until she'd unpacked everything.
Then we'd better not disturb them, Bertha. I expect they can do with the extra sleep. I'll wait here.
All right, miss.
All the same, a good breath of fresh air first thing in the morning won't do them any harm when they do get up. I'll open the windows.
Yes, miss.
Oh, that's much better. Well, Bertha, my dear, so now you have a new mistress.
Yes, miss.
You know it was all I could do to bring myself to part with you.
Then you can imagine how I felt, miss.
Yes, of course.
After all the happy years I spent with you and poor Miss Rena.
I know. But you see, George simply couldn't manage without you. You've looked after him ever since he was a child.
Yes, that's true, miss. But, well, it's the young mistress. She and I'll never get on.
Oh?
It's her manner, miss. She's that grand. The way she must have everything just so.
And so she should be, Bertha.
Yes.
After all, she's General Gabler's daughter. Imagine what she was used to when he was alive. Do you remember how we used to see her out riding with him?
Oh, I should say I do.
That long black habit of hers and the feathers in her hat.
Bless your heart, miss. I'd never have dreamt in those days that it'd be her and Mr. George.
By the way, Bertha, whilst I think of it, you mustn't call him Mr. anymore. In future, it must be Doctor.
Yes, she told me that too, the very minute they got inside the door. Fancy him wanting to be a doctor as well, eh?
Oh, not that sort of doctor, Bertha. They gave him a degree somewhere abroad. Bertha, you've taken off all the loose covers. What on earth possessed you to do that?
The mistress's orders. Says she can't stand loose covers on things.
Then are they going to stay like that?
Yes, I think so, according to her. Mr. George, I mean the doctor. He never said anything.
Oh, good morning, George, dear.
Why, Aunt Julia! Oh, my dear. Fancy your coming all this way so early.
Well, I simply had to come and see how you were both settling in.
Oh, you got home all right from the pier?
Yes, thanks to Mr. Brack. He saw me right to the door.
We were so sorry we couldn't take it back ourselves. But you saw how little room there was in the carriage with all Hedda's luggage.
Yes, she did have rather a lot.
Shall I go and ask the mistress if there's anything I can do for her, Mr. Doctor?
No, I don't think I should, Bertha. She'll ring if she wants you. You can take this case and put it out of the way if you like.
Yes, I'll put it up in the attic.
Yes, that's it. And that case, let me tell you, Aunt Julia, was full, chock full, simply with the stuff I've copied. You've no idea of the material there is in some of those old archives.
Sounds as if you really made the most of your honeymoon, George.
Oh, yes, I did, rather. But do take off your bonnet, Aunt Julie. And my word, what a smart one it is, to be sure.
I really bought it because of Hedda.
Because of Hedda?
Yes, so that she shan't feel ashamed of me if ever we go out together.
You manage to think of everything, don't you, Aunt Julia? Now then, I'll put it on the chair, just here. Yes, it'll be quite all right. Now, let's sit down, shall we?
Oh, it is nice to have you back again, my dear.
And it's nice to see you again, Aunt Julia. You've been father and mother to me, you know. But how's Aunt Rena?
No, she's no better.
Oh.
Well, then we can't really expect any improvement in her, poor thing. She just lies there as she has all these years.
There.
And here you are, George, a married man. Just think of it. And it was you who carried off Hedda Gabler, the beautiful Hedda Gabler. Even now I can scarcely believe it. She had so many admirers, too.
Yes, I dare say quite a few of my friends in town would like to change places with me.
And you were able to have such a long honeymoon, too. 5 months, nearly 6.
Oh, well, you see, I had to treat it as a sort of a travelling scholarship as well, you know, with all those old archives I had to work through, not to mention all the reading it entailed.
Oh, yes, of course. But, George, dear, is there nothing No news of any sort that you feel you'd like to tell me?
Oh, no, I don't think so. Oh, of course, there was the doctorate I took. Oh, but I told you about that last night at the pier.
Yes, you did, dear. But what I mean, well, have you any expectations?
Expectations?
Yes, expectations. Come along now, George. I am your old aunt, you know.
Oh, well, of course I have expectations.
Ah,
Yeah.
I knew it.
I have every expectation of getting a professorship one of these days.
A professorship?
Yes, in fact, I'm almost certain of getting one. But you know that already, Aunt Julia.
Yes, of course. But, George, about the journey, it must have cost you a great deal of money, didn't it?
Oh, yes, I suppose it did, really. But you see, Aunt Julia, Hedda simply had to have this trip. She had to. Nothing else would have done.
No, of course not. And spending one's honeymoon abroad is quite the thing nowadays. Now, tell me, have you been over the house yet?
Oh, rather.
And what did you think of it?
Oh, I think it's splendid. Most of all, though, I'm glad for Hedda's sake. Before we were engaged, she often used to say that Falk's Villa was the only house she'd ever really care to live in.
All the same, my dear. Aren't you going to find this terribly expensive?
Well, fortunately, Mr. Brack managed to arrange the most favourable terms for me. At least so he wrote to Hedda.
I've given security for the furniture and the carpets.
Oh, Aunt Julia, will you never tire of making sacrifices
my
for me?
dear boy, if I can't make things a little easier for you, what other happiness is there for me in this life? And now, my dear, we've reached our goal. It's been a struggle, but now, thank goodness, you've no longer any worries.
Yes, it's wonderful, really, how well things have turned out.
And all those people who were against you and would have kept you down, they're all at your feet now, even the worst of them.
Yes. Is there any news of Eilert? Whilst I've been away, I mean.
Oh, only that he's supposed to have had a new book published.
What? Eilert Lovborg? Recently?
Well, so they say, though I should hardly think it be worth reading. We must wait for your new book, George. Now, that will be something. What's it going to be about?
Oh, it's about domestic crafts in Brabant during the Middle Ages.
Sounds wonderful, dear, and to think that you can write about things like that.
Well, of course, it'll be some time yet before it's ready. There's all that material I collected, which has to be arranged and classified.
Yes, collecting and arranging. You always were clever at that, weren't you? Just like your father.
And you can't imagine how I'm looking forward to it now. Now that I've such delightful surroundings to work in my own home.
And more than that, dear, now that you've the wife you set your heart on.
Yes. Yes, I have, Aunt Julia. Hedda. The most perfect part of it all. Oh, shh. Yes, she is.
Good morning, Hedda. A very good morning to you, my dear, in your new home.
Oh, good morning, my dear Miss Tesman. How nice of you to call. And so early, too.
And did the bride sleep well after the crossing?
Oh, yes, thank you. Possibly.
Oh, possibly. Oh, that's good, Hedda. You were sleeping like a log when I got up.
Yes, fortunately. I always find it takes a little time getting used to one's new surroundings, don't you, Miss Tesman?
Yes,
Yeah, that maid's opened all the French windows. The sun's simply pouring in.
Oh, well, we'll shut them then.
No, Tesman, just pull down the blinds a little, will you?
Yes, of course, my dear.
You can do with a little fresh air in here with all these flowers about. But won't you sit down, Miss Tesman?
Thank you, no. I must be getting back to Rena. Time does drag for her, so poor dear, lying there like that.
Well, remember me to her, Aunt Julia. Give her my love and say I'll come over and see her later in the day.
Yes, of course I will. Oh, I almost forgot. I brought something of yours round with me, George.
Oh?
There.
Oh, I say, Aunt Julia. Oh, fancy your keeping them for me. Oh, wasn't that sweet of her, Hedda? Huh? Look, my old slippers. Oh, yes, I did miss them, didn't I? Now you can see what they're like, Hedda.
Thanks. But I'm really not particularly interested in them.
Oh, but they're the ones Aunt Weena embroidered for me whilst she was lying ill. Oh, you've no idea the memories they bring back.
Perhaps, but hardly for me. Oh, Tesman, we shall never be able to keep that servant.
With Bertha, do you mean?
Just look, leaving her old bonnet lying about on that chair.
Hedda, that's Aunt Julia's bonnet.
Oh, is it?
Yes, indeed it's mine, and it isn't old either, Hedda dear.
I didn't really look at it closely, Miss Tesman.
As a matter of fact, it's the first time I've worn it. The very first.
Well, I think it's an extremely nice bonnet and jolly smart.
Yes, beautiful.
Yes, isn't it? And now, Aunt Julia, have a good look at Hedda before you go. Don't you think she's beautiful?
Oh, my dear, that's nothing new. Hedda's always been lovely.
But don't you think she's looking well? Filled out whilst we've been away.
Filled out. I'm no different now from when I left.
That's what you keep on saying, dear, but there's no doubt about it. Don't you agree, Aunt Julia?
Hedda is lovely. Lovely, lovely. May God bless and keep you, Hedda, dear, for our George's sake.
Oh, please.
I shall come and see you every day.
Oh, yes, Aunt Julia, you must.
Well, goodbye, then. Goodbye. Don't bother to see me out, George. I know my way.
Don't you think Aunt Julia was a little strange, dear? More serious than usual, I thought. I wonder what was the matter with her.
Isn't she like that normally?
Oh, no. Oh, she was different today, somehow.
Do you suppose it had anything to do with the bonnet?
Oh, no. No, I shouldn't think so. Well, I expect she felt a little hurt at the
But what
time.
a thing to do! Throwing her bonnet down in the drawing room. I mean, one just doesn't do that sort of thing.
Oh, well, she won't do it again. You can be quite sure of that.
Anyhow, I shall try to put it right with her. When you go over there later on, you might ask her to spend the evening with us.
Oh, yes, I certainly will. And if you could manage to be a little more affectionate to her, well, that would please her more than anything. Would you, Hedda, for my sake?
I've told you, I'll try to call her aunt. I can't do any more.
Oh, well. Very well. I simply thought now that you're one of the family.
I really can't see what that has to do with it.
Oh, is anything the matter, Hedda?
I was just looking at my old piano. It doesn't go very well with the rest of the room.
Well, as soon as I get my salary, we'll see about exchanging it.
No,
then.
no. I don't want to part with it.
Oh, no.
We could put it in the anteroom and then buy another one for in here.
Oh, yes, I suppose we could.
Oh, these flowers weren't here when we got back last night?
Well, Aunt Julie must have brought them for you.
Ah, there's a card. We'll call back again later. Would you like to guess who they're from?
No, who?
Mrs. Elvsted.
The magistrate's wife?
Yes, that girl with the insufferable hair that she was always showing off. An old flame of yours, I believe.
Well, that didn't last long. It was before I knew you, Hedda. Oh, but fancy her being in town.
And fancy her calling on us. I haven't seen her since we were at school together.
Heaven knows how long it is since I've seen her. You know, it's a mystery to me how she can stand living up there in that hole.
Tell me, doesn't Eilert Lovborg live up there somewhere?
Yes, I believe he does.
Oh, ma'am, it's that lady back again. The one that called and left the flowers before you were up. The ones you're holding now, ma'am.
Oh, yes, ask her to come in, Bertha.
Very well, ma'am. Will you go in, please, ma'am? Oh, thanks.
Oh, how are you, my dear Mrs. Elvsted? It's so nice to see you again.
Yes, it is a long time since we met, isn't it?
And since we met, too, eh?
Thank you for the lovely flowers.
Oh, please, I would have come before yesterday afternoon, but I heard that you were away.
You've only just got to town, then.
Well, no, I arrived yesterday morning. I was almost in despair when I heard that you weren't at home.
Is there anything wrong, then?
Well, I'm afraid there is. Well, you see, you're the only ones I know here to whom I could...
I see. Well, now, why not sit down?
Oh, no, thank you.
Yes. Now, come along.
No.
There. Now, what is it?
Oh, I do so hope you won't either of you misunderstand me.
Oh, I think the best thing you can do is to tell us all about it.
Yes, of course. Well, if you haven't already heard, I must tell you that Eilert Lovborg is in town, too.
Eilert Lovborg?
So he's come back, has he? Fancy that, Hedda.
Yes, I heard.
As a matter of fact, he's been here a week now. Just think of it. A whole week in this terrible town and alone, with all the temptations there are.
But, my dear Mrs. Elvsted, why should you be so concerned?
He was giving the children lessons, you know.
Your children?
My husband's. I haven't any.
Well, but had he settled down sufficiently in his habits to undertake that sort of work?
Oh, these last 2 years, his behaviour has been beyond reproach.
Oh, has it really? Oh, yes. Did you hear that, Hedda?
Yes, Tesman.
Quite beyond reproach in every way, I assure you. But now that I know that he's back here in Christiania, and with so much money to spend, I feel dreadfully worried about him.
Why didn't he stay on, up there with you and your husband?
Oh, he was far too excited and restless to stay on with us once the book was out.
Oh, yes, of course. Aunt Julia said he'd had a book published.
Yes, about a fortnight ago. A big book on the progress of civilization.
Really?
Yes, he's written it all in the last year while he's been with us.
Oh, I say, that is good news. Think of that, Hedda.
Have you seen him since he's been in Christiania?
No, not yet. I couldn't find out his address until this morning, and then I had the greatest difficulty.
It does seem a little odd, you know, that your husband should,
That my husband should what?
should send you to Christiania like this instead of coming to look after his friend himself.
Oh, no. You see, my husband hasn't the time, and besides, I had some shopping to do.
Well, of course, that's different.
Please, Mr. Tesman, you will be nice to Eilert Lovborg if he comes to see you, won't you?
Huh?
I'm certain he will, because you were such good friends in the old days.
Oh, why, yes, I shall be glad to.
Oh, it is kind of you. It's my husband, you see. He's so very devoted to him.
Why not write to him, Tesman? After all, you never know. He might not come to see you of his own accord.
Oh, yes, if you would.
Yes, I'll do it at once. But have you got his address, Mrs.
Yes, yes, of course.
Oh.
Here you are.
Oh, yes, good. Oh, thank you.
A nice friendly letter, mind. Not one of your hasty little notes.
Oh, and Mr. Tesman, please don't mention that it was my idea.
Of course not. I shouldn't dream of it.
There. Now we've killed 2 birds with 1 stone.
Why, I don't understand.
Didn't you see that I wanted him to leave us so that I could talk to you alone?
But there's nothing more to tell, Mrs. Tesman. There isn't really.
Oh, yes, there is. There's a great deal more. That's perfectly obvious. Besides, you haven't told me yet how things are at home.
Oh, I know. I'd rather not talk about
Oh,
them.
nonsense, my dear. You can tell me. After all, we were at school together.
Yes, and I was simply terrified of you, I remember.
Terrified? Of me?
Yes, simply terrified. Whenever we met on the stairs, you used to pull my hair. Yes, and once you threatened to burn it all off.
Oh, that was only a joke. Surely.
Yes, I suppose I was a little silly in those days. However, we've drifted apart since then.
But that's no reason why we shouldn't come together again. Let's begin by calling each other by our Christian names, just as we used to.
Oh, but I'm showing you.
Of course we did. I remember quite distinctly.
Well, it's very sweet of you to be so kind to me. I'm not very used to it, I'm afraid.
Never mind. I'm going to begin calling you Thora. Shall I?
But my name is Thea.
Why, of course. Thea. So, you're not used to kindness, Thea? Not even at home?
If only I'd had a real home. But I haven't. I never have had.
You went up there originally as Mr. Elvsted's housekeeper, didn't you?
As governess, really.
And afterwards you became Mrs. Elvsted.
Yes, I did. That was 5 years ago.
Yes, it must be.
Oh, those 5 years. Oh, Mrs. Tesman.
Now.
Oh, Hedda. Oh, if you only knew what they were like, if you could only realize.
Eilert Lovborg was up there, too, for about 3 years, wasn't he?
Eilert Lovborg. Yes, he was.
I dare say you saw quite a lot of him.
Yes, he used to come over every day to help with the children's lessons.
And your husband? He's a magistrate. I suppose he's away quite often.
Yes, he is, really.
Thea, you're so sweet. Poor Thea. Tell me, what sort of man is he to live with in ordinary everyday life? Is he good to you?
Well, I'm sure he means well.
Of course, he must be a lot older than you.
Yes, there's that too, but... Oh, it's not only that.
Hmm?
Oh, you've no idea how wretched it's been. We've absolutely nothing in common. There's nothing we can share. We don't even think alike.
But he's fond of you, surely, in his own way.
Oh, I don't know. I don't believe he really cares for anybody but himself, and perhaps the children a little.
And for Eilert Lovborg?
For Eilert Lovborg? Why do you say that?
Well, but surely, if he sends you all this way to find him, that was what you told my husband, wasn't it?
Did I? Yes, of course I did. No.
I'll speak the truth. It's bound to come out sooner or later anyhow.
Why, Thea,
My husband didn't know I was coming.
your husband didn't know?
No, of course not. And anyhow, he's away. Oh, Hedda, I couldn't stand it any longer. I should have been absolutely alone up there from now on.
But how did you...
I packed the few things I needed and walked out of the house.
But what do you think your husband will say when you go back again?
I'm never going back.
But where are you going? What are you going to do?
I don't know yet. I only know that if I'm to go on living, I must live here, where he lives, where Eilert Lovborg lives.
Tell me, Thea, how did it come about, this friendship between you and Eilert Lovborg?
Oh, quite slowly. And then I found I had some influence over him.
Really?
He gave up his old ways. Not because I asked him to. I'd never have dared do that. But he saw that I didn't approve, and so he stopped them.
So little Thea has reformed him, has she?
Well, that's what he says anyhow. But then he's done as much for me in a different way. He's turned me into a real person. Taught me to think and to understand. Oh, so many things. And then the wonderful time came when I was able to share in his work. He let me help him.
I see. It was like that, was it?
Yes.
Just like two good comrades.
Comrades. That's just what he used to say. Oh, I know I ought to feel completely happy, but somehow I can't.
You're not very sure of him, then?
There's a woman he can't get out of his mind. She's there between us all the time. It's someone from his past.
He told you about her?
He only mentioned her once, quite casually. He said that when they parted, she threatened to shoot him with a pistol.
Oh, rubbish. People don't do things like that.
No, I know, and that's why I thought it might have been that red-haired singer that he once... Oh, people used to say she always carried a loaded pistol about with her.
Oh, then in that case, I expect it was she.
Yes, but Hedda, she's in town again. She's come back. I don't know what to do.
My husband's come.
Well, here's the epistle.
Oh, splendid. Mrs. Elvsted was just going, weren't you, dear? I'll see her to the gate.
Oh, Hedda, I wonder whether Bertha would take this.
I'll give it to her.
Mr. Brack's called, ma'am.
Oh, ask him to come in, Bertha. Oh, and you might post this letter.
Yes, ma'am, I will. I'll go directly. This way, sir.
Well, thank you, Bertha. I do hope I haven't called too early.
Of course not.
Oh, you're always welcome, you know that. Oh, Mr. Brack, Mrs. Elvsted.
How do you do?
Charmed.
So nice to see you by daylight, Mr. Brack.
Why, do I look different?
Yes, younger.
Oh, thank you.
You haven't thanked Mr. Brack yet, Tesman, for all the trouble he's taken.
Oh, no, please.
You've been a friend indeed. But please excuse me, Mrs. Elvsted's in rather a hurry. I'll just see her to the gate.
Of course. Well, now, my dear George, and what does your charming wife think of it all? Is she moderately satisfied?
Oh, good heavens, yes. We can't thank you enough. Oh, but let's sit down.
Thanks, George, but only for a moment, you know. Actually, there is something I wanted to talk to you about, George.
Ah, I think I know what's coming.
No, it's not about the money. There's plenty of time for that, although indeed I am inclined to wish we'd gone at things a shade more economically.
Oh, but that would never have done for Hedda, my dear fellow. Oh, you know her. I couldn't possibly ask her to live in some poky little suburban house.
No, that's just the trouble.
Anyhow, with any luck, I should be getting my new appointment pretty soon.
Yes, but unfortunately, these things do sometimes take rather a long time. Oh, by the way, I have a piece of news for you. Eilert Lovborg is back in town again.
Yes, I know.
Oh, you know, do you?
Well, Mrs. Elvsted's just told us.
Oh, yes. Of course, he's been living up there, hasn't he?
Yes. And you know, he's turned over a new leaf, become perfectly respectable again.
Yes, so they tell me.
He's just had a new book published, too, I believe.
So I hear.
It made something of a stir, apparently.
Yes, apparently quite a stir.
Yes, well, that's good news, isn't it? Well, I mean, he's so gifted, I was genuinely afraid he'd gone downhill for good.
Well, that was everybody's opinion, really.
Of course, what he'll do now, I can't imagine. I mean, what on earth does he think he's going to live on? I shouldn't think he can bring out a new book every year.
My husband's always worrying about what one's going to live on.
Well, actually, my dear, we're discussing poor Eilert.
Really? What about him?
Well, I was just wondering what will become of him.
Who knows? After all, Mr. Elvsted may have reformed him. He is a magistrate, you know.
Yes, well, let's hope so. As a matter of fact, I've just written to Eilert. I've asked him to come round this evening, Hedda.
Oh, but my dear chap, you're coming to my little bachelor party this evening.
Surely you hadn't forgotten?
Oh, yes, I'm afraid I had.
Anyhow, I shouldn't worry about Eilert Lovborg if I were you. I don't suppose for one moment he'll turn up.
Why? What makes you think that?
My dear George, and you too, of course, Mrs. Tesman. You know, I feel it would be most unfair of me not to tell you something which...
What?
Well...
About Eilert Lovborg?
Well, it's about you too, George. It's about both of you.
Well, what is it? Oh, come along, old chap, tell us.
Now, George, you really must be prepared to find that this appointment you are hoping for might take rather longer to materialize than you expect.
Oh, has anything gone wrong, then?
It's possible, you see, that before the post is finally awarded, you may have some competition.
Competition? Well, think of that, Hedda.
Aha!
Yes, but from whom? You don't mean...
Exactly. From Eilert Lovborg.
Oh, no. Oh, no, I can't believe it. It's impossible.
No, I'm afraid you may find it'll happen for all that.
But my dear Brack, how could they show such an incredible lack of consideration for me?
Oh, well...
Well, I mean to say I'm a married man. Hedda and I married on my prospects. We've plunged deeply into debt, even borrowed from Aunt Julia into the bargain. Why, good Lord, they actually promised me that appointment. Well, didn't they?
Oh, come now, come. You'll get it all right, George. Only after it's been contested, you see, that's all.
Think of it, dear. It'll be almost like some sort of duel.
But, my dear Hedda, how can you be so calm about it?
Oh, I'm not. I'm not calm at all. I'm really quite excited. I'm most interested to see who will win.
Yes. At all events, Mrs. Tesman, I thought it better that you should know just how things stand.
It won't make any difference.
Oh, really? Oh, I see. Oh, well, that's that then, isn't it? Goodbye. George, I'll call for you on the way back from my afternoon walk.
Yes, yes. I only wish I knew what to do.
Goodbye, Mrs. Tesman.
Goodbye, Mr. Brack. And do come again.
Thank
soon.
you. I will indeed. Goodbye. Goodbye, George.
Oh, goodbye, Brack. Well, that's what comes of being romantic, Hedda.
Is that what you were being?
Well, I must admit, my dear, it was romantic to go and get married and set up house like this on nothing but my prospects.
You may be right about that.
Oh, well, at least we've a very lovely home, Hedda. The home we both dreamt of. That we fell in love with. Do you remember?
I remember we were going to entertain. Go into society.
Oh, yes, and that was something I really looked forward to. Seeing you as hostess to our distinguished guests. Well, for the time being, we'll just have to entertain each other, Hedda. Well, and perhaps Aunt Julia now and then. Oh, my dear, I had meant it to be so different for you.
I suppose I shall have to do without a manservant for the present.
Oh, yes, it's out of the question, I'm afraid.
And the chestnut mare I was to have had?
Chestnut mare?
I suppose that's out of the question, too.
Oh, good heavens, yes.
Well, at least I've one thing I can amuse myself with.
Oh, thank goodness for that. What is it, my dear?
My pistols, George.
Your pistols?
General Gabler's pistols.
No, Hedda. No, Hedda, for heaven's sake, don't touch those dangerous things. Oh, no, for my sake, Hedda, darling, please.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Tesman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brack. So you're back again.
Oh, yes.
Don't forget to shut the gate.
Oh, of course, I'm so sorry. Here, I say, what are you doing with that pistol?
I'm going to shoot you, Mr. Brack.
Here, what on earth? No, please, don't point that thing at me. Put it down.
This is for coming in the back way.
Are you quite mad?
Why, good gracious. It didn't hit you, did it?
Now, do stop being silly, please. What the devil you are... Oh, you're still playing this game, are you? Tell me, what do you shoot at?
Nothing. I just shoot up into the air.
All the same, if you've no objection, Mrs. Tesman, I think you'd better let me have a look at it, will you? Thanks. Oh, of course, I know this one anywhere. Anywhere. Well, where's the case? Oh, yes, good. Yeah. Now, we are not going to play at that game any more today.
Then what exactly am I supposed to do with myself?
Isn't your husband at home?
No. The moment we finished lunch, he rushed off to his aunt's. He wasn't expecting you so early.
Oh, yes, I should have thought of that. It was rather stupid of me.
Why stupid?
Well, because if I had thought, I'd have come here a little earlier.
Then you found nobody at all, because I was in my room changing.
Isn't there so much as a crack in the door we might have talked through?
No, you forgot to provide one.
And that was stupid of me, too.
So, there's nothing for us to do but to sit and wait. My husband won't be back for some time yet.
Oh, that's perfectly all right. I have inexhaustible patience.
Well, then, perhaps we'd better sit down.
Thanks.
No, you sit over there.
Oh.
Well?
Well?
I said it first.
Yes, you did. And now let's have a nice, cozy little chat together, Mrs. Hedda.
Doesn't it seem an eternity since we last talked to each other?
You mean just the two of us alone, huh?
Well, since you put it like that.
You know, I don't believe there's been one single day since you went on which I didn't find myself wishing and wishing you were back again.
And you know I've done nothing but the same thing.
Really? And I imagined you were having such a glorious time on your honeymoon.
Yes, I was. You can imagine.
And George never failed to say so in his letters.
I'm sure he didn't. George Tesman is never happier than when he's rummaging in some old library. Oh, my dear Mr. Brack, I can't tell you how bored, how unutterably bored I've been. Everlastingly having to be in the company of the same person.
Morning, noon, and night.
I said everlastingly. Scholars are not the most amusing travelling companions. Not in the long run, at any rate.
Not even the scholar ones in love with.
Oh, don't use that nauseating word to me.
Now, what is all this, Mrs. Hedda?
No, you really should try it yourself. Listening to someone talking about the history of civilization, morning, noon, and night.
Everlastingly.
Precisely. And the domestic crafts of Brabant during the Middle Ages. That was the crowning horror.
Yes, but do tell me, if that's the case, I simply can't understand why.
Why? I consented to marry George Tesman in the first place, you mean?
Well, let's put it like that, shall we?
Good gracious. Does it strike you as so very peculiar?
Yes, and no.
My dear Mr. Brack, if you must know, I danced myself to a standstill. My day was done. No, I won't say it. Nor think of it either.
Well, you've certainly no reason.
Oh, reason. But you must admit that George Tesman is the height of respectability. And I wouldn't say there was anything absolutely ridiculous about him. Would you?
Ridiculous? Oh, no. No. You know, I always thought you were convinced, like everybody else, that George was going to make a very big name for himself.
Oh, yes, I was. And then he was so insistent. He made such strenuous efforts to be allowed to provide for me. I really didn't see why I shouldn't let him.
No, from that point of view, I suppose.
And that was more than my other admirers were prepared to do, my dear Mr. Brack.
Yes. Well, of course, I can't possibly answer for all the other admirers. But speaking for myself, you know perfectly well that I've always maintained a certain respect for the marriage tie. In theory, of course, that is.
Oh, I've never had any hopes where you were concerned.
Oh, really? Oh, I see. Of course, you know, what I really want is somewhere pleasant and congenial where I can be of service and where I can come and go as the mood takes me and as a trusted friend.
Of the husband, you mean?
To be perfectly truthful, principally of the wife. Yes. Oh, of the husband, too, of course, but in a slightly different degree. You know, such a, well, shall I call it triangular arrangement is often a very great comfort to all parties.
Yes, you can't imagine how often I long for someone to make a third on those interminable train journeys. Oh, those train journeys.
No, fortunately, the journey is over now.
No, it's only beginning. It will go on for a long time yet. I've only come to a halt on the line.
Well, That's precisely when one jumps out and takes a little breather, Mrs. Hedda.
I never jump out.
But surely...
No, I dislike it. I prefer to stay in my seat with the other person.
Yes, but supposing a third person were to jump in and join the couple.
Oh, well, that would be quite another matter.
I mean a trusted and sympathetic friend.
Who could talk about everything.
In a most unscholarly way.
That would certainly be a relief.
The triangle is now complete.
And on goes the train.
Oh, you're here already, Brack?
Yes, my dear George.
Bertha didn't tell me. Here, just look here. I managed to get hold of a copy of Eilert Lovborg's new book. I thought you might like to have a look at it, Hedda.
No, I don't think so, thanks.
Oh.
Perhaps I will, though, presently.
I glanced at it on the way.
Oh, and what do you think of it as a scholar, I mean?
Well, I should think it's quite remarkable. The little I've read is amazingly shrewd and shows excellent judgment. He certainly never used to write like that. Well, I must go and change. We're not going just yet, are we?
Oh, good heavens, no, George. There's no great hurry.
Oh, good. Oh, and by the way, Hedda, I'm afraid Aunt Julia won't be coming this evening.
Oh, on account of that business with the bonnet, I suppose.
Of course not, Anna. How can you think such a thing of Aunt Julia? Oh, really, Hedda? No, the fact is Aunt Rena's very ill.
She always is.
Oh, yes. But today she's taken a turn for the worse, poor thing. Oh, well. Oh, by the way, my dear, you can't imagine how pleased Aunt Julia is that you've come home looking so wonderfully well.
Oh, everlasting aunt.
Mrs. Hedda, do tell me, what was all that about a bonnet?
It was just a little incident that occurred when Miss Tesman was here this morning. She'd left her bonnet over there on that chair, and I pretended I thought it was the servant.
Oh, really? Now, really, Mrs. Hedda, how could you possibly do such a thing, and to such a nice, charming old lady, too?
Well, you see, that sort of thing comes over me without any warning, just like that, and I can't stop myself. I have to do it. Oh, I don't know how to explain it.
You know, you're not really happy, that's what it is.
Why should I be happy? Can you tell me?
Well, for one thing, you have this home you always wanted.
Oh, surely you don't believe that old tale.
Wasn't there anything in it, then?
There was this much. I made use of George Tesman last summer to see me home after dinner parties. He was always ridiculously tongue-tied, and purely for something to say, I happened to tell him how much I should like to live here. That gave us something in common. From that, we became engaged.
Oh, but this is delightful. So you didn't really care about the villa at all?
God knows I didn't.
Oh, but surely now that we've made it all so nice and comfortable for you.
Oh, it's that smell of lavender and old roses that seems to be in all the rooms. But perhaps that's Aunt Julia.
You know, I should think it far more likely to be the late Mrs. Falk.
Yes, there is something of decay in it. Like a bouquet the day after the ball. Oh, my dear Mr. Brack, I can't tell you how bored I'm going to be in this house.
Now, why shouldn't you find some object in life to excite your interest, Mrs. Hedda, just as other people do?
It's this genteel poverty that I've managed to drop into. It's that makes life so pitiable, so utterly ludicrous. That's what it is.
You know I shouldn't say it was that at all.
So, what would you say, John?
No, I should say it was simply because you've never really been deeply stirred by anything. However, that may not be so far off now.
You're thinking of all this bother about the wretched professorship. But that's my husband's concern. I shan't waste a moment thinking about it, I assure you.
No, I don't suppose you will. But, Mrs. Hedda, what if some claim, the sort of claim politely described as a serious responsibility, were to be made
Be
upon
quiet.
you?
Nothing like that will ever happen to me.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that again, say in a year's time.
I've no aptitude for that kind of thing, Mr. Brack. I dislike responsibility.
But good heavens above, why shouldn't you, like any other woman, have a perfectly natural aptitude?
Oh, be quiet, I say. Sometimes I think there's only one thing in the world I have any aptitude for.
And what might that be, may I ask?
Boring myself to death.
Oh.
Now you know. Here comes the professor.
No, please don't, I beg you, please.
Oh, no sign of Eilert Lovborg yet, eh?
No.
Oh, well, you don't mind if you give him as long as possible?
Of course not, George. Nobody's going to turn up at my place before 7 or 7:30.
Well, then, we can keep Hedda company, eh?
Fine.
If you please, ma'am,
Yes, Bertha?
there's a gentleman wants to know if you're at home.
Yes, ask him to come in.
I'm sure it's he. Well, just think of that.
Will you come in, sir?
Well, my dear Eilert, at last we meet again. Eh?
Thank you for the letter, George.
You're very welcome, Mr. Lovborg. I don't know whether you two gentlemen have met.
It's Mr. Brack, isn't it?
Yes, of course we've met a long time ago.
So now I want you to make yourself completely at home, Eilert. That's right, isn't it, Hedda? Besides, you've come back to town for good, haven't you?
Yes, I hope so.
Yes, so do I. Oh, incidentally, I managed to get hold of a copy of your new book. I haven't had time to read it yet, though.
I shouldn't trouble too if I were you,
But why not?
because there's very little in it.
Oh, well, fancy your saying that.
Oh, but surely it's received tremendous praise, hasn't it? At least that's what I heard.
Yes, that was the whole idea. I put nothing in it that anyone could possibly disagree with.
Oh, very sensible of
Oh,
you.
yes, but my dear Eilert...
Because you see, now I mean to gain a position for myself, to make a fresh start.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course.
But when this one's published, George Tesman, you will simply have to read it. This is my first real book. I put my true self into this one. It's the continuation.
Of the book that's just out?
Of course.
Oh, yes, but my dear Eilert, that comes right down to the present day.
And this one deals with the future.
The future? But good heavens, we don't know anything about that.
Oh, there's a number of things we can say about it all the same. Here, look.
Yes, but that's not your handwriting, is it?
No, I dictated it. It's divided into two parts. The first is about the factors which must determine any future control of civilization.
Yes.
And the second part here is about the course which that civilization might take.
Oh, it's extraordinary. Now, you know, it would never occur to me to write about a thing like that.
No, I'm sure it wouldn't.
I thought I might read you a little of it this evening.
Oh, that's jolly nice of you, Eilert, but, well, this evening...
And the fact is, Mr. Lovborg, I'm giving a little party at my house this evening, actually for George, you see.
Oh. Well, in that case, I'd better be
Oh,
going.
no, please. Won't you do me the honor of joining us?
No, I can't do that. Thank you very much.
Well, rubbish, of course you can. Why not? I mean, we shall be just a few friends, you know, and I can promise you a very gay time, as Mrs. Tesman so aptly puts it.
I don't doubt that, but all the same...
Well, you could even bring your manuscript along with you and read it to George there, if you like.
Yes, Eilert. Now, why not do that?
But, my dear, if Mr. Lovborg doesn't want to, I'm sure he'd much rather stay here and have supper with me.
With you, Mrs. Tesman?
And with Mrs. Elvsted.
Oh. Yes, I saw her for a moment this morning.
Did you? Well, she's coming. So you see, it's almost imperative that you should stay, Mr. Lovborg, or she'll have no one to see her home.
That's true. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Tesman. Then I'll stay.
I'll just warn the maid.
Tell me, Eilert, this latest work of yours about the future, is that what you're going to lecture on?
Yes, I am. I hope you won't take it amiss, George.
Oh, no, of course
I
not.
quite understand it might be a bit unwelcome to you.
Well, just on my account, I could hardly...
But I'll wait
expect
till your
you to-
appointment is confirmed, of course.
Yes. You'll wait. Oh, yes, but aren't you putting in for it yourself?
No. The recognition is all I want.
But good Lord. Then, Hedda, think of it, my dear. Eilert isn't going to stand in our way.
Our way? For heaven's sake, don't bring me into it. You look as if you've been struck by lightning standing there like that.
Yes. I rather think I have.
Actually, a small thunderstorm has just passed over our heads, Mrs. Tesman.
Then I'm sure you'd all like a glass of cold punch.
Well, now, that wouldn't be a bad idea at all.
It's on the table in the anteroom. Do help yourself.
Thank you so
Come
much.
along.
That's wonderful.
Won't you have one too, Mr. Lovborg?
No, thank you very much. Not for me.
But good heavens, cold punch isn't poison.
Perhaps not to everybody.
Well, then, I'll talk to Mr. Lovborg while you have yours.
Yes, do, my dear. Now, come along, Brack. Let's see if we can...
Come and sit down, Mr. Lovborg. I'd like to show you some photographs. You see, my husband and I came back through the Tyrol. Just look at this range of mountains, Mr. Lovborg. It's the Ortler group, I think.
Hedda Gabler.
Yes.
Hedda Gabler.
Yes. That was my name, when we knew each other before.
And now I must learn never to say Hedda Gabler again for the rest of my life.
Yes, you must. I think the sooner you begin to practice, the better.
Hedda Gabler married. And married to George Tesman.
Yes? That's how it is.
Oh, Hedda, dear, how could you throw yourself away like that?
If you go on calling me Hedda, dear, I won't talk to you.
Not even when we're alone.
No. You may think it, but you mustn't say it.
I understand. It's an insult to your love for George Tesman.
Love? What a suggestion.
No love, then?
No. And there isn't going to be any unfaithfulness either. I won't listen.
Hedda, just answer me one thing.
Hedda, dear.
And this is the view from the Val d'Ampezzo. Dear, what do they call these extraordinary peaks?
Those are the Dolomites.
Oh, yes, of course. Those are the Dolomites, Mr. Lovborg.
Now, Hedda, dear, I just wondered whether you wouldn't like a glass of cold punch. Anyhow, I brought you some.
Thank you. But you filled 2 glasses, and Mr. Lovborg doesn't want any.
No, but Mrs. Elvsted's coming.
Oh, yes, of course. Mrs. Elvsted.
Yes, I don't suppose she'll be long now. I'll leave it for her. Now then, Brack, let's just...
Hedda, answer me just one thing.
Well?
Was there no love in your feeling for me either? Not a hint, not a trace of affection in it?
I wonder if there was. To me it seems as though we were just 2 good comrades, 2 very close friends. You especially were the soul of frankness.
You wanted me to be.
When I look back on it, there was something beautiful, something fascinating, something daring about that secret intimacy of ours, that comradeship which no one ever suspected.
And when I used to confess to you, tell you things about myself which no one else knew, sit there and admit to having been drunk for days on end and reveling night after night. What power was it you had, Hedda, that made me confide in you like that, I wonder?
Did I have any power?
How else can I explain it? All those veiled questions you used to put to me.
Which you understood so beautifully.
To think that you could sit there and ask me questions like that so brazenly.
But you could answer them, Mr. Lovborg.
That's what I can't understand now when I look back. But tell me, Hedda, wasn't it love underneath it all? Wasn't it your impulse to purify me, to give me absolution, once I'd made you my confessor? Wasn't that it?
No, not quite. Has it never struck you that a young girl might secretly want a glimpse into a world which she's allowed to know nothing about?
I see. Our friendship was really a joint craving for life then. Anyhow, why couldn't it have gone on?
That was your fault.
It was you who put an end to it.
Only when it was in danger of becoming something else. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Eilert Lovborg, trying to take advantage of your innocent comrade.
Then why didn't you do it? Do as you threatened. Shoot me down there and then.
I thought of the scandal.
Yes, Hedda. Fundamentally, you're a coward.
A terrible coward. But how fortunate for you, since you found such charming consolation up at the Elvsted.
Oh, I know what Thea's been telling you.
And perhaps you told her something about us.
Not a word. She's far too ingenuous to understand a thing like that.
Ingenuous.
About that kind of thing, yes.
And I'm a coward. But now, I'll confess something to you.
Well?
By not daring to shoot you.
Yes.
That wasn't my greatest piece of cowardice that evening.
Oh, Hedda. Hedda Gabler. Of course. I see it all now. That was the secret behind our friendship. You, my darling, and me. It really was your passion for life.
Now, don't be too sure of that. Oh, there you are at last, dear darling. Do come in. You've simply no idea how I've been longing for you to get here.
Oughtn't I to have just a word with your husband?
Oh, no, of course not. Leave them to themselves. They'll be off in a moment anyhow.
Are they going out?
Yes, they're off to some wild party.
You're not as well, Eilert.
No.
No, Mr. Lovborg's stopping here with us. Come and sit over here next to me. Then I can be in the middle.
Oh, all right, if you like.
Don't you think Thea's lovely to look at?
Only to look at?
Yes. Because, you see, she and I are real comrades. We have a perfect understanding, so we can sit and talk together quite frankly.
Nothing veiled, Mr. Lovborg.
Well,
Here, my dear, let me get you a glass of cold punch.
Oh, no, thank you. I never take anything like that.
Well, you then, Mr. Lovborg.
thank you, I don't either.
No, he doesn't either.
But if I want you to.
It would make no difference.
Poor me. And I haven't any power over you at all.
Not where that is concerned.
But seriously, I think you ought to, you know, for your own sake.
Why do you say that?
Or rather, on account of others.
Really?
You see, otherwise they might think that you weren't quite sure of yourself, that you lacked the self-confidence.
No, Hedda.
They may think what they like for the time being.
Yes, of course they may. I noticed Mr. Brack's smile when you fought shy of going in there with them.
What, shy? I simply prefer to stay here and talk with you.
Of course, it was only natural, Hedda. Brack wasn't to know that. And I also saw the way he smiled and glanced at my husband when you didn't dare go to that miserable little party.
Dare? Do you think I didn't dare?
I don't think so, but that's how he took it.
Well, let him.
You're not going with them, then?
No, I'm staying here with you and Thea.
Yes, really, Hedda, that would be best. So, you know your own mind and you stick to your principles, is that it? Well, after all, that's as a man should be. Now, wasn't that exactly what I said to you this morning, Thea, when you arrived in such a terrible state of anxiety? Hedda, you can see for yourself. You're simply upsetting yourself for nothing. Hedda. Well, now we can enjoy ourselves.
But what's all this about, Mrs. Tesman?
God, Hedda, what are you saying? What are you doing? Shh, they notice Mr. Brack's looking at you.
So she was terribly anxious about me.
Oh, Hedda, how could you?
And that was how my comrade honestly believed in
But
me.
my dear, please listen to me first.
Your health, Thea?
Oh, Hedda, what have you done? Done? I? Are you mad?
And good health to you too, Mrs. Tesman. Thank you for the truth. Vive la vérité!
Now, no more for the moment. Remember, you're going to a party. Oh, no. Shh, they're looking.
And now, Thea, I want the truth.
Yes?
Did your husband know that you'd followed me? Was it agreed between the two of you that you should come to town and keep watch on me? Perhaps it was your husband himself who made you do it. Yes, no doubt he wanted me back in the office. Or did he miss me at cards?
Eilert.
I think a drink to the old magistrate as well.
No more now. Remember, you're going to read your book to my husband.
I'm sorry, Thea. It was stupid of me. To take it like that, I mean. Don't be angry with me, my dear. You are my friend. You'll see, all of you. Even though I did slip once, I'm up again now. And it was you that helped me, Thea.
Oh, thank heaven.
Mrs. Tesman, I'm afraid our time's up.
Mine too, Mr. Brack, since you were so kind as to invite me.
Oh, Eilert, don't go, please.
Oh, then you are coming after all.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to.
Good, I'm delighted.
Ah, yes, that's fine. But, Hedda, dear, how's Mrs. Elvsted going to get home?
Oh, we'll manage somehow.
Well, I'll come back and fetch her about 10 o'clock, Mrs. Tesman. Will that do?
Yes, that'll do splendidly.
Well, then that's settled. But you mustn't expect me back as early as that, Hedda.
Oh, stay as long as you like, dear, just as long as ever you like.
And now, gentlemen, off to the fireworks. We'll go. Goodbye, Mrs. Tesman.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mrs. Elvsted.
Goodbye, dear.
Goodbye.
About 10 o'clock, then.
Yes. Hedda. Oh, Hedda, where's all this going to end? At 10 o'clock. He's coming to fetch you. I can just see him with vine leaves in his hair. Yes, if only it is like that. You'll see. He'll have proved to himself that he can control himself, and he'll be a free man for the rest of his days. Yes, if only he does come back like that. He will. You may doubt him as much as you like, but I believe in him. You've some reason for all this, Hedda. Yes, I have. For once in my life, I want to have the power to shape a human destiny. But you have. I haven't. Your husband. And I've never had it. Do you think he's worth anything? Oh, if you only knew how poor I am. And that you should have such riches. I think I shall have to burn your hair off after all. Oh, let go. Let go. You're frightening me.
It's all ready in the dining room.
Splendid. We're coming. No. I want to go home alone now, this minute. Nonsense. First you're going to stay and have something, you little ninny. And then at 10 o'clock, Eilert Lovborg will be here with vine leaves in his hair. Oh, no.
We'll return to Henrik Ibsen's Hedda Gabler with Peggy Ashcroft, following a brief pause for station identification. This
Oh, my God. He's not back yet. Hedda. She's still asleep. Oh,
you, Eilert?
No, it's me, ma'am. A girl's just come with this letter.
A letter? Give it to me. Oh, please.
I can't, ma'am. It's for the doctor.
Oh.
It was Miss Tesman's maid brought it. I'll put it here on the table.
Yes, all right.
Oh, have you been sleeping all night in that chair, ma'am?
Yes. It doesn't matter.
Oh, dear. And the mistress over there on the sofa, too. Well, I never. That lamp's beginning to smoke, ma'am. Shall I put it out?
Yes. It'll be light soon, anyhow.
It's light now, ma'am.
Why, so it is. They're still not back.
Well, you didn't think they would be, did you, ma'am? Bless your heart, I could have told you. The minute a certain gentleman was back in town and gone along with them.
Don't speak so loud. You'll wake Mrs. Tesman.
Oh, yes. Yes, let her sleep, poor thing. She needs it, I expect. Shall I give the fire a bit of a stoke, ma'am, while I'm here?
No, not for me, thank you.
Very well, ma'am.
Oh, over there. Just the maid, that's all. Oh, yes, of course. We're in here. I remember. What's the time, Thea? It's past 7. What time did my husband get back? He hasn't come back yet. Not back? Nobody's come back. What do you think we sat up until 4 o'clock? Well, we certainly might have spared ourselves the trouble. Did you manage to sleep at all? Oh, yes, I think I slept fairly well, thank you. Didn't you? No, not a wink. I couldn't, Hedda. Well, it's perfectly obvious to me what's happened. They simply kept it up till the early hours at Mr. Brack's. And then I suppose my husband thought better of coming back here and waking us up, and he's sleeping it off at his aunt's. After all, they still have his own room. No, he can't be with them because a note's just come from Miss Tesman. It's over there. Really? Huh. Yes, it's certainly from Aunt Julia. Well, then he must have spent the night at Mr. Brack's. And as for Eilert Lovborg, he's sitting there with vine leaves in his hair, reading his manuscript. Oh, Hedda, you're just saying that. You don't believe a word of it. You really are a little goose, Thea. And just look at you. Half dead. Why don't you go to my room and lie down for a little while? I promise I'll wake you the moment my husband gets back. Come along now, do as I tell you. Go and lie down. All right, Hedda, I'll try. Oh. It's nearly out. Oh, it's as cold as ice in here.
Hedda!
Good morning.
What in heaven's name are you doing up at this hour?
Yes, I am up early today, aren't I?
Well, and I thought you were still fast asleep in bed.
Stay now. Mrs. Elvsted's in my room, lying down.
Oh, she spent the night here then, did she?
Naturally, nobody came to fetch her.
Oh, no, of course.
Well, did you enjoy yourself at Mr. Brack's?
Why? Were you worried about me?
I shouldn't think of being worried. I just asked you if you enjoyed yourself.
Oh, yes. It wasn't too bad for once, I suppose. I enjoyed it rather more at the beginning, when Eilert was reading me bits of his book. Hedda, my dear, you can't imagine what a book it's going to be.
You say, but I'm not interested in that.
Well, anyhow, I don't mind admitting, Hedda, that when he'd finished reading, a horrible feeling came over me.
A horrible feeling?
Yes. As I sat there, I suddenly found myself envying Eilert for being able to write like that. Oh, just think of that, Hedda.
I am thinking of it.
And then to realize that with all that wonderful talent, he's still so completely impossible. It's such a pity.
I suppose you mean he's got more spirit than the rest of you?
Huh? No, not at all. It's just that he can't seem to do anything in moderation.
Well, what happened in the end?
Well, in the end, Hedda, it was little short of an orgy.
Were there vine leaves in his hair?
Vine leaves? No, I can't remember any. But he made a long, rambling speech in praise of the woman who'd inspired him in his work. At least that's how he put it.
Did he say who she was?
Oh, no, he didn't. And if you ask me, I'd say it was Mrs. Elvsted. You see.
Well, and where did you leave him?
Oh, on the way back. I'm afraid he'd had rather more than his share.
I can imagine.
But now for the weird part of it. Or rather the sad part. As I was hurrying to catch them up, what do you think I found lying on the pavement, eh?
How should I know?
Now, you won't tell anyone, will you, Hedda? And promise me for Eilert's sake. Just think. I found this.
But isn't that the packet he had with him last night?
Yes. It's the whole of that precious, irreplaceable manuscript. And he dropped it without even noticing. Now, just think of that, Hedda. Of all the...
But why didn't you give it back to him at once?
Well, I didn't see him again because he and a couple of the others disappeared down a side street.
I suppose the others were seeing him home.
Yes, I suppose so.
So nobody knows you've got Eilert Lovborg's manuscript?
No. And nobody must. As soon as I've had a little rest, I must take it round to him.
No. Not immediately. Let me read it first.
Oh, no, Hedda, really, dear, I couldn't possibly.
Couldn't you?
Well, surely you can realize what a state he'd be in when he finds it missing. It's his one and only copy.
Can't a thing like that be written again, then?
Oh, no, I don't think it can. You see, it's largely a matter of inspiration.
Oh, yes, of course, the inspiration.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, there's a letter for you.
A letter?
Yes, it came early this morning.
Oh? Oh, it's from Aunt Julia. Now, I wonder what... Oh, Hedda. She says poor Aunt Wena's dying.
Well, it was only to be expected.
Yes, I must run round there at once. Oh, Hedda, my dearest, if you could only bring yourself to come with me. Just think.
No, don't ask me to. You know, I simply can't bear illness or death or anything out there like that.
Oh, very well. Oh, now then, my hat and my overcoat, where is it? Oh, yes, in the hall, of course. I hope I'm not too late, Hedda.
Oh, run then, run. If you please, sir, Mr. Brack's here. He wants to know whether you'll see him.
What now? No, I can't possibly see him.
No, but I can. Ask him to come in, Bertha.
Very well, ma'am.
The manuscript.
Oh, yes, give it to me.
No. I'll put it away safely in the drawer till you get back.
Very well.
Will you please go in, sir?
Thank you. Well.
Mr. Brack, you are an early bird.
Yes, aren't I? George, you're surely not going out again, are you?
Oh, yes, I must rush round to the aunt's. It's Aunt Rena. She's dying, poor soul.
Oh, no. Really?
Yes.
Oh, well, of course, in that case, you mustn't let me keep you, George.
Yes, I really must run. Goodbye.
Goodbye, George. Goodbye.
Well, it seems to have been unusually gay at your place last night, Mr. Brack.
What has George been telling you?
Oh, only some boring story about losing track of the others on the way home.
Ah, but I didn't lose track, you see. Oh, no, I had very excellent reasons for not losing track of my guests last night, or rather, more accurately, some of my guests.
Eilert Lovborg among them, I suppose.
Quite candidly, yes.
Now you really are beginning to arouse my curiosity.
You do know, of course, where he and one or two of the others passed what was left of the night, Mrs. Hedda?
No, tell me. If it's fit to mention.
Oh, yes, this is quite mentionable. Well, they ended up at an exceedingly hectic party.
Of the gay kind?
Of the gayest possible kind.
Do tell me all about it, Mr. Brack.
Well, to cut a very long story short, he finished up at Mademoiselle Diane's.
Mademoiselle Diane?
Yes, it was Diane's party, you see, for a few admirers and lady friends.
Isn't she the red-haired one?
She certainly is.
And isn't she some sort of, singer?
Yes, she is, when she's not otherwise engaged, you know.
And how did all this end?
In a far from friendly fashion, I'm so sorry to have to tell you. Mademoiselle Diane, it seems, went from a most tender welcome to an exchange of blows.
With Eilert Lovborg?
Apparently he accused her or some of her friends of having robbed him, or I don't know, his pocketbook was gone, he declared, as well as some other things. In short, he kicked up the deuce of a row.
And then what happened?
Oh, well, it was a free-for-all, which of course included the ladies. Fortunately, it wasn't very long before the police arrived.
Oh, the police were there?
Oh, yes, the police were there. And then Eilert Lovborg had to turn violent, hit one of the constables over the head and ripped off his tunic. So, you see, he was carted off to the police station.
How do you know all this, Mr. Brack?
Oh, I know from the police. They told me themselves.
So that was how it was. No vine leaves in his hair.
Vine leaves, did you say? Huh?
Tell me, Mr. Brack, exactly why are you so interested in Eilert Lovborg's movement?
Well, I mean, to begin with, I can't be quite indifferent about Shirley, can I? I mean, especially if it should happen to come out in court that he went there straight from my place.
So the matter will come into court, then?
Well, naturally. However, be that as it may, I felt it was, as an old friend of the family, you see, it was simply my duty to furnish you and your husband with a full report of these nocturnal adventures of his.
Exactly why, Mr. Brack?
Because I have a shrewd suspicion that he thinks of sheltering behind you.
How can you imagine such a thing?
Do remember, from now on, every decent door will be closed to Eilert Lovborg as it was before.
And so ought mine to be. Is that what you mean?
Yes, I do. Yes, I admit I should feel a trifle embarrassed if this fellow were to have the free run of your house. I mean, however plainly his intrusion might be resented, if he once forced his way into...
Into the triangle?
Precisely. Don't you see? It would mean that I should be left homeless.
So you want to be cock of the walk? Is that it?
Yes, quite simply, that is it. And I shall fight for it with all the means at my disposal.
You're quite a formidable person when it comes to the point.
You think so?
Yes. I'm beginning to think so. And I'm truly thankful that you've no sort of hold over me.
Yes, perhaps you're right about that. Who knows? Who knows what I might not be capable of doing then?
Really, Mr. Brack? That sounds almost like a threat.
A threat? Oh, far from it. No, you see, I think the triangle is best maintained on a voluntary basis.
That's precisely my opinion.
I see. Oh, well, now that I've said what I wanted to say, I really feel I must be getting back, so goodbye, Mrs. Tesman.
You're going through the garden?
Yes, it's more convenient.
Of course. And then it's the back way as well.
Yes, it's perfectly true. I've no objection at all to back ways. At times, they can be most stimulating.
When there's shooting going on?
Oh, people don't shoot their farmyard cocks.
No. Not if there's only one. What? Why, Mr. Lovborg, you're very late calling for Thea.
Or rather, early to be calling on you. I'm sorry.
How do you know she's still here?
Told me at her lodgings she'd been out all night. George isn't about yet, I suppose?
No.
Did he tell you anything?
Yes, he said that it was unusually gay at Mr. Brack's last night.
Nothing more?
No, I don't think so. But then I was awfully sleepy. Oh, Eilert, at last.
At last. And too late.
Too late? For what?
Everything. It's all over.
No, don't say that. Perhaps you'd rather talk to her alone. If so, I'll go.
No, please stay too. I beg of you, please. It's nothing to do with anything that happened last night.
What is it then?
Simply this. That from now on, we must both go our separate ways.
Separate ways?
You see, I no longer need you, Thea.
Well, you can stand there and say that. Not need me. But I can help you as I did before, can't I? We're going on working together, aren't we?
I'm not going to do any more work.
Then what shall I do with my life?
You must try to live as if we'd never met.
But I can't do that.
You must try, Thea.
Never.
And you must go home again.
Never in life will I do that. Where you go, I'll go too. I won't be pushed aside like that. I'm here and I'm staying here.
Yeah.
And I shall be here when the book comes. I'll be here with you.
Yeah.
I want to see you honored and respected again and happy. And I want to share that happiness with you.
Thea, our book will never come out.
Never come out?
It can never come out.
Eilert, what have you done with the manuscript? Yes, the manuscript.
I'd rather you didn't ask me that, Thea.
Yes, but I must know. I've a right to know.
The manuscript? Well, I tore it up into 1,000 pieces.
Oh, but that's
Not true, is that what you think?
Well, of course it must be true if you say so, but it seems so very unlikely.
I've torn my life to pieces, one of my life's work as well.
Oh, God. And
You did that last night?
Yes, I tell you I did, into 1,000 pieces and scattered them on the fjord, far out as I possibly could. At least there they can drift in the clean water till they sink slowly deeper and deeper. As I shall, Thea.
Do you know, Eilert, that for the rest of my life, what you've done with the book will be the same to me as if you'd killed a child?
That's just what it was. Killing a child.
Well, then how could you? It was partly my child, too. Child. Well, so it's all over. Well, I'll go now, Hedda.
But you're not leaving town?
I don't know yet what I shall do. I've nothing now. Nothing before me.
So, you're not seeing her home, Mr. Lovborg?
I? Through the streets. Suppose she were to be seen walking with me.
Of course, I don't know exactly what happened last night, but was it really so fatal?
Oh, it won't be only last night. I'm fully aware of that. The truth is, that kind of life isn't for me anymore. Not without that courage to face life which she has killed in me.
And to think that that pretty little fool should have had her fingers in a man's destiny. All the same, how could you be so cruel to her? To shatter her dream after all that time?
I can speak the truth to you, Hedda. I didn't tear the manuscript to bits. And I didn't throw it in the fjord either. I destroyed it all the same.
I don't understand.
Thea said that what I had done was the same to her as if I had killed a child. But killing his child is not the worst thing that a father can do.
What is the worst, then?
Hedda, suppose that a man, after a night of drinking, returned home in the early hours to his child's mother and said, "Look, I've been out all night, all over the place, here, there, and everywhere. I took the child with me, and I've lost it. Completely lost it. God knows into whose hands, whose clutches it's fallen into."
Oh, but when all's said and done, it was only a book.
Thea's whole soul was in that book.
So I understand.
Then you can understand why there could be no future for us together.
What are you going to do, then?
Nothing. Just see that I put an end to the whole thing, and the sooner the better.
Eilert Lovborg, listen to me. Couldn't you try to do it beautifully?
Beautifully. The vine leaves in my hair, as you used to say.
No, I don't believe in vine leaves anymore.
But let this be beautiful.
You must go now and never come back.
Goodbye, Mrs. Tesman. Give my regards to your husband.
No, wait a moment. I must give you something to remember me by.
Is that it? One of General Garber's pistols.
You remember? It was aimed at you once.
You should have used it then.
Take it. You can use it now.
Thank you.
But beautifully, Eilert Lovborg. Promise me that.
Goodbye, Hedda Gabler.
Now, I'm burning your child, Thea. You with your curly hair. Your child and Eilert Lovborg's. I'm burning it. I'm burning your child.
I'm sorry to be so late. I do hope you didn't wait dinner for me.
Oh, I had something.
Well, I didn't want to leave until I felt sure there was nothing more I could do.
No. I rather think you're more upset about Aunt Rena's death than Aunt Julia is.
Oh, it's not only that, Hedda. It's Eilert I'm so worried about.
Why, what have you heard?
Oh, nothing. I called at his rooms to tell him his manuscript was safe, but he wasn't in. And on the way back, I met Mrs. Elvsted, and she told me he'd been here early this morning.
Yes. He came just after you left.
Apparently, he said he's torn up the manuscript, eh?
Yes, he did say that.
Oh, good heavens, he must have been out of his mind. And, of course, you didn't dare give it to him. Was that it, Hedda?
No, he didn't take it.
But you told him we had it.
No. Did you tell Mrs. Elvsted then?
Oh, no. I didn't think that was quite the thing to do. All the same, you really should have told him, you know, Hedda. Suppose he took it into his head to do something desperate. You'd better let me have the manuscript, and I'll run round with it now. Where is it?
I no longer have it.
No longer? What on earth do you mean?
I've burnt it.
What?
Every page of it.
Burnt it? Burnt Eilert's manuscript?
Then now the maid might hear.
Burnt it? But good God! No, it's impossible.
Well, nevertheless, it's true.
But you realize what you've done, Hedda? That was lost property. You can't do that sort of thing. It's illegal. You ask Brack, he'll tell you.
I should advise you not to mention it either to Mr. Brack or to anyone else.
But how could you come to do such a thing? What on earth possessed you? Well, tell me.
I did it for your sake, George.
For my sake?
Yes. When you told me this morning how he'd been reading to you and you confessed that you envied him his
Oh,
work.
for good heavens, I didn't mean that literally.
But whether you did or not, I just couldn't bear the thought of anyone putting you in the shade.
Hedda. Oh, is this true? But you've never shown your feelings for me like this before.
Well, perhaps I'd better tell you. A woman just at this time.
Huh?
Oh, you can ask Aunt Julia. She'll tell you soon enough.
Oh, Hedda. I think I understand. Good heavens. Is it really that?
Hey, don't shout the maid, my dear.
The maid! Oh, how absurd you are, Hedda. It's only dear old Bertha. Well, I'll go and tell her myself now.
It's killing me, all this.
What is, Hedda?
All this farce, George.
Farce? Because I'm so happy and excited about it? Oh, but Aunt Julia must certainly be told. And that you've begun to call me George, too. Oh, she'd be so pleased, she'd be delighted.
And when she hears that I burned Eilert Lovborg's manuscript for your sake?
Oh, no. No, of course not. And nobody must know about that. But that you could do a thing like that for my sake, Hedda. That you could feel so passionately about it. Oh, yes, Aunt Julia must certainly hear that. Or is that sort of thing usual with young wives? I wonder.
I think you'd better ask Aunt Julia about that, too.
Yeah. But the manuscript. Oh, good Lord, that's a dreadful thought all the same. Poor Eilert.
Oh, Hedda, dear, I do so hope you won't mind my coming back like
Why, what is it, dear?
It's about Eilert. I'm so terribly afraid he's met with an accident.
Oh, do you think so?
I heard them talking about him at the boarding house just as I went in. There are the most incredible rumours about him going round.
And yet I could swear he went straight home to
But
bed.
what did they say at the boarding house,
Nothing I could make head or tail of. They stopped talking when they saw me.
Well, let's hope you're mistaken, Mrs.
No,
Elvsted.
I'm sure I'm right. And I thought I heard them say something about the hospital.
Hospital?
Oh, surely not.
I was so scared that I went straight round to his lodgings and asked for him. And they said he hadn't been back since yesterday afternoon. I'm sure that something dreadful must have happened to him.
Well, how would it be if I went out and made some inquiries?
No,
Hedda?
I don't think you want to get mixed up in this affair.
Oh, it's you, Brack, eh?
George, I felt I simply had to come and see you this evening.
Has anything happened then?
Yes.
Anything serious, Mr. Brack?
Well, that rather depends on how one looks at things, Mrs. Tesman.
It's to do with Eilert Lovborg, isn't it?
Well, what makes you say that, Mrs. Elvsted? Or do you already know something?
Oh, no. No, I don't know anything.
Oh, but good heavens, can't you tell us what it is?
Well, I'm most sorry to have to tell you all that Eilert Lovborg has been taken to the hospital, and they think he's dying.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
In hospital, dying?
So soon. Oh, we parted in anger, Hedda. I must go to him. I must see him before it's too late.
There's no use, I'm afraid. He's not allowed to receive visitors, you see.
But then you know what's happened to him. Oh, please, tell me what it is.
It wasn't his own doing, was it?
I'm certain it was.
But Hedda, how can you possibly know?
Unfortunately, your guess is perfectly correct, Mrs. Tesman.
Oh, how horrible.
His own doing. Think of that.
He shot himself.
Correctly guessed again, Mrs. Tesman.
When? When did it happen, Mr. Brack?
This afternoon, between 3 and 4.
But good gracious, where did it happen?
Where? At his lodgings, I think.
No, it couldn't have been, because I was there between 6 and 7.
Oh, well, it must have been somewhere else, and I really don't know. I only do know that he was found. He'd shot himself through the heart.
Oh, how terrible. I can't bear to think of it, that he should end like this.
Through the heart,
That's what I said.
not in the temple.
Through the heart, Mrs. Tesman.
Well, the heart is just as good.
What's that?
Nothing. Nothing.
And the wound is serious, you say? Huh?
Fatal. I'm afraid it must be all over by now.
Yes, it is. I feel it. It's over. It's all over. Oh, Hedda.
Tell me, Brack, how did you get to know all this?
From a police officer I happened to be talking to.
An act of bravery at last.
What? Oh, good heavens, Hedda, now what are you saying?
I think it's beautiful.
Mrs.
Hedda, how can you say that a thing like that is beautiful?
Eilert Lovborg settled his account with himself. He's had the courage to do what had to be done.
Oh, no, you must never believe that was how it happened. It must have been in a moment of insanity.
Oh, despair.
No, I'm certain it wasn't that.
Yes, it was. It was in a moment of insanity, just when he tore up our manuscript.
Manuscript? You mean to tell me he tore it up, his book?
Yes, he did. Last night.
Oh, Hedda,
Very strange thing to do.
just think of Eilert going out of the world like this and not leaving behind the one work that might have gone down to posterity.
Oh, if only it could be pieced together again.
Oh, if only it could. I don't know what I wouldn't give.
Perhaps it could be, Mr. Tesman.
What do you mean?
Look, I've kept the rough notes he used to dictate to me from.
Oh, you kept them, Mrs. Elvsted?
Yes, they're here in my bag.
Oh, may I see them?
I'm afraid they're in rather a muddle.
Just imagine if we could make something of them. Perhaps if we could go through them together.
Oh, yes. Anyhow, let's try.
We'll do it. We must. I'll devote my life to it.
You, George? Your life?
Yes. Or as much of it as I can possibly spare. You do understand, don't you, Hedda? I owe it to Eilert's memory.
Perhaps.
And so, my dear Mrs. Elvsted, we must pull ourselves together and see what we can do. Now, first, let's try and sort out these notes. Now then, where shall we sit? Let's see. Let's go over there in the anteroom. You'll excuse us, Brack, won't you?
My dear fellow.
Well, come along, Mrs. Elvsted.
What a sense of freedom it gives one, Mr. Brack. This act of Eilert Lovborg.
Freedom? Oh, yes, I suppose so, for him.
No, I mean for me. It gives me a sense of deliverance to know that it's still possible to do something of one's own free will in this world.
Mrs. Tesman, Eilert Lovborg meant more to you than you're prepared to admit even to yourself, or am I mistaken?
I don't answer questions like that. I only know that Eilert Lovborg had the courage to live life in his own way. And then this last moment with all its beauty, that he had the strength and will to turn his back on life.
I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid that I shall have to destroy that pretty illusion.
Illusion?
Oh, you'd have been robbed of it sooner or later in any case.
What do you mean?
Because you see, he didn't shoot himself voluntarily.
Not voluntarily?
No, it didn't happen quite as I described it just
Have you
now.
been keeping something back?
For Mrs. Elvsted's sake, I modified it a little, you know.
And what really happened?
Well, to begin with, he's already dead.
You died in hospital?
Without regaining consciousness.
Is that all?
And it didn't take place at his lodging.
That makes very little difference.
Oh, on the contrary. You see, the truth is that Eilert Lovborg was found shot at Mademoiselle Diane's.
That's not possible. He couldn't have gone back there today.
Well, he did go back. He went back there this afternoon. He went back for something which he accused him of having taken away from him. He was talking very wildly about a child that had been lost.
So that was why.
I thought possibly he might have meant his manuscript, but that apparently he destroyed himself. So you see, it must have been his pocketbook.
Yes, I suppose it must. So it was there that he was found.
Yes, there, with a discharged pistol in his pocket, fatally wounded.
Yes, through the heart.
No, the wound was in the bowels.
Had to. Why? Must everything I touch become sordid and ridiculous?
And there's one other thing that might be regarded as equally distasteful, Mrs. Tesman.
What's that?
The pistol.
What about the pistol?
I think he must have stolen that pistol.
That's not true.
Well, there can be no other explanation. He must have...
Hedda, dear, it's almost impossible for us to work under that hanging lamp in there. Would you mind if we were to sit at your writing table?
Oh, of course not, if you wish. No, wait a moment. I'll just move my things out of your way.
Ah, yes.
I can put them in there on the piano. Well, Thea, my sweet, how is the Eilert Lovborg memorial getting on?
Dear, it's so difficult. It seems almost impossible to sort out.
Well, we must manage it somehow. I'm determined to. And arranging other people's papers is just what I'm good at. Now then, Mrs. Elvsted.
What were you saying about the pistol?
I was saying he must have stolen it.
Why stolen, exactly?
Because any other explanation ought to be impossible, Mrs. Hedda.
Really?
But of course, Eilert Lovborg was here this morning, wasn't he?
Yes.
Were you alone with him?
Yes, for a short time.
And you didn't leave him alone in the room at all while he was here?
No.
Now, please think very carefully indeed. Are you quite certain you didn't go out of the room while he was here just for one moment?
Well, perhaps for a moment. Into the hall.
Where was your pistol case during that time?
It was locked up.
Well, Mrs. Hedda.
It was lying on the writing table.
Well, have you looked since to see whether both the pistols are still there?
No.
Well, you needn't look. I saw the pistol that was found on Eilert Lovborg, and I recognized it immediately, of course, from yesterday and from before that, too.
Have you got it with you?
No, I haven't. The police have got it.
And what will they do with it?
Search until they find the owner.
Do you think they'll succeed?
No, Hedda Gabler, no. Not so long as I hold my tongue.
And if you don't, what then?
Oh, well, there's always the possibility the thing was stolen, you know.
I'd rather die first.
People say that. They never really do.
But suppose the pistol wasn't stolen and they do discover who the owner is. What then?
Oh, then, my dear Hedda, then I'm afraid there'd be a scandal.
A scandal?
Yes, a scandal. The very one thing that you fear most. You and Mademoiselle Diane would both have to appear together in court, of course. She'd have to explain what it was all about, what really happened, whether it was an accident or not. Was he trying to get that pistol out of his pocket to threaten her when it went off, or did she make a grab at it, shoot him, and then slip it back into his pocket? Oh, Mademoiselle Diane was more than capable of doing that, you know. She's anything but a weakling.
None of this revolting business has anything to do with me.
No, of course not. But all the same, you'd have to answer the question, why did you give Eilert Lovborg that pistol? And what conclusions do you suppose will be drawn from the fact that you did give it to him?
That's true. I didn't think of that.
Oh, well, fortunately, there's no danger. As long as I don't say anything.
I'm in your power, then, Mr. Brack.
Oh.
You have me at your mercy.
Oh, Hedda, my dearest. Please believe that I should never abuse my position.
All the same, I'm completely in your power. For you to do as you like with. Never. I can't bear the thought of that.
No, we all have to accept the inevitable.
Yes, perhaps we do, Mr. Brack. Well, George, and how is it getting on, eh?
Oh, goodness knows, my dear. There's months of work here.
Well, think of that. Thea, my dear, isn't it strange? Here you are, sitting with George Tesman, just in the same way as you used to sit with Eilert Lovborg.
Oh, if only I could inspire Mr. Tesman, just in the same way.
Oh, I'm sure you'll do that as well, in time.
Do you know, my dear, I'm rather inclined to agree with you. Now then, why don't you go over there and sit with Brack again, eh?
Isn't there anything I could do here that would be of any use to you both?
No thing in the world. Now, Brack, I rely on you to keep Hedda company.
Nothing would give me greater pleasure.
Thanks. But I'm feeling rather tired tonight. I think I'll go into the anteroom and lie down on the sofa for a little. You mind if I draw these curtains?
No, my dear, of course, do that.
What on earth?
Oh, Hedda, dear, not dance music, not this evening. Think of Aunt Rena and of Eilert Lovborg.
And of Aunt Julia! And of the rest of them! Oh, very well. From now on, I'll be quiet.
Oh, it's seeing us working together at this melancholy job, that's what it is. I'll tell you what, Mrs. Elvsted, you must move into Aunt Julia's. And then I'll come over in the evenings, and we can sit and work there, eh?
Yes, perhaps that would be a better idea.
I can hear every word you're saying, George. And what do you suppose I'm going to do, left alone here every evening?
Oh, Brack's a good sort. He won't mind keeping you company.
But of course, with pleasure, every evening, if you like. Why, we'll have a perfectly wonderful time together, Mrs. Tesman.
Yes, don't you flatter yourself, we will, Mr. Brack. Now you're cock of the walk.
Oh, now she's playing with those wretched pistols again. Oh, Hedda, you really must. I want... Brack! She shot herself! Shot herself in the temple! Think of that.
Good God. But people don't do things like that.
In Hedda Gabler by Henrik Ibsen, the part of Hedda was played by Peggy Ashcroft. George Tesman was played by David Markham, Judge Brack by Michael McLearmore, Mrs. Elvsted by Rachel Kempson, and Eilert Lovborg by Michael Warre. The play was adapted for broadcasting from his English version by Max Faber and produced by Donald mcwhinnie for BBC World Theatre.
This program came to you pre-recorded from Parkway, America's Fine Arts Broadcasting Service.
With transmission facilities in Shoreview, Minnesota, this is KSJN, serving the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area at 91.1 FM.